heat. But first, I'm going to talk about the safety and security issues, only to recognize the fact that we spent a lot of time on it in the last CAC meeting, and I've emphasized it in the report. And I think Eva Trimble has some additional information about safety and security when she gives her report on the transformation plan. But I think it's a positive step in the right direction. Obviously, we're in the heating season. For those of us on the monitor staff and for the staff of NYCHA in the heating unit, it's always the heating season. It may be summer for everyone else, but they're at work trying to identify areas which needed to be repaired, work that needed to be done to prepare for the winter. The work that has been done is helpful in limiting the number of outages that may occur. I want to emphasize, as we have in the past, that the inspections that take place can only inspect those things which are visible. So when the outages occur that relate to the distribution system, they have to be dealt with immediately, just as all do, but there usually isn't a warning. The only possible warning there may be relates to what used to be called shortfalls, but really means a few apartments without heat, but not enough to create meet the definition of an outage. And so what we're doing through analytics is trying to figure out whether those individual apartment outages are a message to where there may be failures, even though it's not visible. And that's something that NYCHA has not done in the past. There's really been no sufficient tracking of those individual outages. And in fact, the record keeping has not been as good either. So we're spending a lot of time on that and hope that we can add that to the analytics to make the program stronger in identifying problems ahead of time. But there's more detail on this in the report and a discussion of Maximo and how that relates to the heating issues as well. Something which has gotten a lot of attention, of course, is the fan ventilation project to combat molds. As of about 2 hours ago, if I have my information correct, about 362 fans have been installed. I have to look at that number and compare it to what we thought the schedule would be to be able to tell you whether they're on schedule or not. But at least something is happening there, and that there's an effort underway. We've also heard there may be some problem with one of the vendors and payment issues. So if that slows things down, that means that the NYCHA meeting, the deadline on that could be in jeopardy, and we'll stay on top of that. As you all also know, that I've been very concerned about the cleaning of the ducts in the buildings. Putting in new fans is not really going to solve any problem if the ducts are not cleaned. And NYCHA recognized that too. We pushed very hard. NYCHA recognized that as well and issued emergency contracts. But also in the same communication 2 hours ago, I learned that there were no respondents to the RFP for those emergency contracts. And NYCHA is trying to figure out why. And we'll try to help them to see why no one would consider bidding on those contracts. It's an integral part of getting the value out of the fans that will be installed, and we can report to you on that on our website when we find out more. We won't wait till the next CAC meeting or the next community meeting. I know there are enough people asking questions about this that we will keep that keep you up to date on our website. There is a new procurement officer at NYCHA. I'm not sure how he pronounces his last name. It's Sergio. Eva, can you help me? Or Arvind? Is it Panek? I think that's how he pronounces it. He's already been sworn in as the head of procurement at NYCHA. This was the idea for a chief compliance officer, and creation of that position was in the KPMG report. It's something we felt very strongly about, and NYCHA agreed. Some of the people on our monitor team have worked with him in the past and have a lot of confidence in him. And we're delighted that he's on board and will be working and being as helpful as we can as the procurement office is brought up to quality standards. It really needs help. It's one of the reasons that there were problems with the RFPs and other problems, but he has done this work before, has the experience, and also knows New York City. So we're hopeful that they'll come along soon. And then with respect to the NYCHA budget, I don't know whether Arvind and Eva will say anything about that, but that's in the process of being set by NYCHA, and we'll be participating in that process. We'll be watching it, and we'll be learning how it's done and how the decisions are being made. So I just want to add one last thing, which has to do with the transformation plan and also the mold issue. And it's an opportunity for everyone to gain more information and to participate more in the process. The blueprint plan, which NYCHA has, which goes beyond the transformation plan, is going to be the subject.
I can hear you. I can see him.
Can you hear me?
I know you can see him, but when you're at the point where
I'll go by phone.
Are you having trouble hearing me?
We can hear you, Bart. We ask that all members go on mute, please.
Okay. As part of the blueprint, there is a proposed legislation to create the Public Benefit Corporation, and the state assembly, where that bill was filed, is going to hold hearings on December 8th, starting at 11 a.m. We will put that on the website with the link to those hearings so that you'll be able to do that. In addition, on December 9th, the City Council is holding hearings on RAD and PACT, and we will also put the link and that information on the website. And then lastly, with respect to mold, many of you know that there's a class action matter in the Southern District of New York called the Baez case, and it is before Judge Pauly in the Southern District. This is sometimes referred to as the mold litigation. A legal issue has arisen which caused the lawyers representing the Baez plaintiffs to seek relief from Judge Pauly. The question that the Baez lawyers want decided is whether NYCHA has a continuing obligation to ensure that repairs have been made or will be made regarding mold, even after a property is transferred under RAD or PACT. Obviously, the Baez lawyers believe that the obligation should continue. Judge Pauly has not set a date for the conference, or at least he hadn't as of earlier today when we last checked. He hasn't set a date for the conference or a hearing. We do believe that the public will be permitted to participate in the sense that we'll be able to listen in to the hearing, but that's not always the case in the district court. Sometimes there are conferences just with the lawyers, but again, we'll keep you advised on that. I've been asked to put the letter that the Baez lawyers sent to the court. I've been asked to put that on the Monitor website, and we will do that. And when and if NYCHA formally responds and files its papers. We'll put that on the website as well. And again, once there is a date for the conference or hearing, we will post that on the website and the link to it if anybody wants to listen in on that hearing. So that's all. That's what I wanted to cover today. Usually I don't ask you to go back to read the report, but there's much more detail in it, and I think you'll find that helpful in understanding how we're approaching a number of the issues, particularly the heat issue. And then I'd like to turn it over. I believe Lynn Patton is not available. She wanted to be here, but couldn't be. So we'll be skipping her part on the agenda, and move on to I think we'll be hearing from the Deputy Mayor Vicky Bean's office. If you have any questions about anything I covered, there'll be plenty of opportunity during this meeting to ask questions, and also, as you know, anytime that you need to reach me or to reach anybody on the monitor team, will always be available to you. So Asha, I'll turn it back to you so we get to the heart of the meeting, which is to talk about the transformation and the other plans for the near future and the distant future for NYCHA. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart, for that welcome and those very important updates and announcements. I would like now to turn to the agenda for the rest of the evening. As you stated, the focus of tonight's meeting will be focused on a discussion of NYCHA's transformation plan, the new organizational plan that they've been working on. So there'll be opportunities for Q&A for that. And we ask that everyone listen closely during that presentation so that we can ask some really good questions. So for tonight's agenda, we will next turn to remarks by Joan Callander, the Senior Advisor for Real Estate in the Office of Deputy Mayor Vicky Bean, and then remarks by our new member, Lilith Lozano, who is the Citywide Council of Presidents representative. And then we will hear remarks from our NYCHA Federal Monitor Team member, Ilan Para, and we will then turn to the presentation by Eva Trimble and Arvind Sohini of the Executive Vice President for Strategy and Innovations Office of the Chair at NYCHA and the Director of Strategic Planning. We will have our discussion and Q&A, and then we will turn to CAC member updates and recognition. And then we'll turn it back to you, Bart, to close our meeting out. I would next like to turn to Joan Callander, please.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. First, thank you to Bart and Asha for bringing us all together tonight for the next CAC call. I'll try to keep it brief, but did not introduce myself at the last meeting and wanted to do so now. As Asha mentioned, I'm Joan Callander. I'm a senior advisor on for the Deputy Mayor of Housing and Economic Development, Vicky Bean. I have worked in real estate project management for about over 10 years at this point in various roles. And in my current role at the mayor's office, I report to the deputy mayor on all things NYCHA. So that's involved all plans and strategies for advancing a recovery post-COVID. And in that, you should hear that for us, our office, that translates to a strong emphasis on housing stability, at which NYCHA is the center. So in addition to that, that includes all strategies that address the $40 billion in renovation work that needs to happen across the NYCHA portfolio, including all of the HUD agreement pillars, as Bart mentioned in the opening, and because it's timely with heat season starting, in our role, we are hoping to, we aim to advance capital investment in the heating plants. The city in 2019 actually invested about $20 million across 76 developments, and that is on top of the $45 million in upgrades that NYCHA made in the year of 2020. I also am fortunate to work on a number of other issues, including NYCHA 2.0, and notably the PACT program, which is already seeing quite a bit of success delivering renovations to residents throughout New York City. Most recently, completing about 1,800 unit renovation at Betances and Baychester Murphy in the Bronx. And finally, there are a number of other projects and initiatives that I'm fortunate to touch on, but I will note that with the Blueprint for Change, of which the public trust legislation and the transformation plan are a part, I am also lucky enough to be able to work with the monitor and some of the folks on this call to really advance the goals. Even Arvind will spend more time with you walking you through a portion of that being the transformation plan piece. But I'll close by saying that, it takes a lot of dedication and creativity and compassion to create the kind of change that NYCHA's leadership alongside the monitor and the folks on this call are prioritizing by being here and offering your perspective. So I hope residents and advocates and everyone who cares about NYCHA will comment during the public comment period, which is open through December 28th. With that, I'll stop there. Thank you again to Bart and the rest of the Guidepost team, and happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Ms. Callander. We're honored to have you join our CAC and to have you be a representative from Deputy Mayor Vicky Bean's office on these important issues. We look forward to working with you as we go into 2021 and start to advance even more initiatives. Excellent, thank you. And now we would like to turn to, I know that she may have had some audio connection issues. So hopefully we have Ms. Lilith Lozano on, who represents the CCOP, who is our newest addition to our CAC membership. Ms. Lozano, will you please give an introduction?
Apologies, Asha. It looks as if she's losing connection. She'll have to, there she is. She's reconnected. Lily, you can go ahead and unmute your device.
Ms. Lozano, we can see you. Can you please unmute and please give us an introduction? Let us know about your role on CCOP and the work that you do and any updates.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I apologize for the technical issues. My name is Lilith Lozano. I've been doing this for 32 years. I am the president of Parkside Houses, the district chair of Bronx North, and part of the executive board members in CCOP. I've been an advocate for housing for many years. I've done it privately as well as community. I have to say it's been rewarding in its times, and it's been a thankless.
Ms. Lozano, can you hear us?
She's reconnecting, Asha.
Okay, let's give her a moment to see if we can reconnect. If not, we'll move on in our agenda. We'll wait one moment.
You really got this down pat, Floretta. you know what everybody's doing.
Now, while she's connecting, I will actually move to a moment that's not on our agenda formally, and we were going to talk about it in the update session. But if I could turn please to Fabrizio Caro from FDNY to give us an update, please.
Good evening. How's everyone? So yeah, in terms of the FDNY's update, predominantly with outreach and fire safety education and fire prevention, ultimately we've been working with the NYCHA monitors team and also with the resident engagement division, ultimately to start coordinating outreach given this new normal of using digital platforms to reach and provide virtual presentations on general fire and safety prevention to citywide tenant association leaders and tenant associations. I'm glad to say that we have contacted and have begun that coordinating with the Resident Engagement Division. We are right now trying to identify if we are going to do it borough-based or citywide, but we should have something in the works, possibly either before the holidays or into the new year, right at the start of what we consider the fire season, where we do see a bulk of serious or major fires occurring. The aim is ultimately to provide all NYCHA residents and NYCHA communities with the necessary information of general residential fire safety, what to do in the event of a fire if you live in a fireproof or non-fireproof building, and the importance of checking and ensuring that there are working smoke detectors in your households. Basically all the topics that cover all aspects of residential fire safety. In addition to that, we are working with NYCHA Communications and our communications team to develop monthly strategies, basically to strengthen messaging that can be sent out to the listservs that NYCHA has in terms of their residents, that provides all levels of educational resources and interactive videos, given that this is the new normal, to basically reinforce this message. So again, we are planning to do this on a citywide approach. And then at the same time, our fire safety education team was provided with individual contacts for those that did allow for us to receive them, to basically start targeting individual tenant associations to develop individual presentations as well.
Thank you so much for that update. We're really looking forward to hearing more about this important training series from the FDNY to NYCHA residents. And we encourage all TAPs to take advantage of this wonderful opportunity to get the virtual trainings at your developments done, as well as to participate on the broader level at either at the borough level as well, and to take advantage of the library of resources that the FDNY has available electronically. It's wonderful, particularly as we begin this heat season and unfortunately see an increase of fire hazards. With that, I would like to turn to Chief Brennan to update on further on the FDNY efforts.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Asha. Just a couple of quick points from operational standpoint from our operational units in the field. We're working on getting a more robust inventory as far as our keys for the facilities. Up till now, it's things I found out is that NYCHA just been dealing with the local firehouse directly, and fire operations really hasn't had a pulse or a good handle on who has what, other than reaching out and asking for feedback. So we're trying to establish a central point of contact in fire operations that NYCHA is going to go through when units need new keys, etc. Anything has to be replaced or updated, and that'll give us a much better handle on the inventory of who has what and who's lacking. Another thing is we also working with NYCHA on getting notifications when these key fob systems go down. I'm told they go down for service or if they're out for repair. So if our units show up on the scene, that we'll know it is an outage, and hopefully maybe NYCHA has some kind of contingency where we can get into that building without causing damage. So working with NYCHA on that. And also we're trying to get a notification set up as far as scaffolding. It does impede some of our operations when scaffolding's put up around these buildings. And if we know about that ahead of time and get word of that, we can plan accordingly. So that would help us out. And that's it so far as from an operational standpoint, but we're making good progress.
Thank you so much for those important updates. We appreciate that. And now I wanted to circle back to see if Ms. Lozano is able to reconnect the audio.
Yes, we've reconnected her by phone and she's just done so. Lily, can you unmute your phone?
Please *6 to unmute. Ms. Lozano, please *6 to unmute. Okay, I think we might still be having problems
Could
with
I
our
ask
audio.
Could I ask Chief Brennan a question while we're trying to make the connection?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I got it.
It's
Hello?
always the way.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, please proceed, Ms. Lozano. We apologize that we lost you with the technical difficulties despite our audio check pre-meeting. So please proceed. We'd like to hear your introduction and a little bit more about the work that CCOP is doing and an update, please.
My name is Elite Lozano. I'm the resident leader at Parkside Houses. I'm the district chair for Bronx North, and I'm also part of the executive board members, the treasurer at CCOP. I've done this for 32 years. I've seen the changes. I've spoken and had the opportunity to speak to different chairs and different administrations. I know that there's a lot of apprehension by the body, by several residents, and it's all understandable. CCOP has been working with the new chair, Gregory Russ, since he got in. We had an introduction. We talked to him basically about what was going on. So the misconception of the fact that we haven't been sitting on every Saturday with him prior to COVID to start, expressing to him the problems that are coming before us, the concerns and the issues. So we are listening in CCOP. I had an opportunity with my board members today to speak to Russ regarding the a little bit of the transformation, but the blueprint for change. I emphasized to him that everyone is understandably concerned. RAD shouldn't be only the self, Band-Aid, but there's things within the agency that I had to bring to his attention. I said, we talk about getting all these Band-Aids because NYCHA has a deficit. Residents didn't put them in that deficit. And I mentioned that to him today very candidly. I said, we have apartments in 323 developments that we have people living in them illegally because people have passed away. I know this COVID is going to be for a length of time, but the truth of the matter is that they have a law department. They have a finance department. They have all these departments. We need, and respectfully, Mr. Schwartz, I appreciate all your diligence, but I kind of put the iron the fire to the flame when I mentioned, I said, listen, what I want to hear, because I want to come out tonight to know, is this a done deal? No, the blueprint for change is not a done deal. They did put in legislation to our understanding. He finally shared it with Danny Barber. Some of us are still looking at it because we just got it today. I'm going to look at it thoroughly. And I expressed to him that they have to start slicing and dicing all the pork bellies within the department that are getting these action articles. Because the RAD members are very aware of the higher executive boards, and they're getting all these salaries, but then yet nothing is being done. I also asked him, just so everybody could be aware, I also asked him about the fact that, there are archives in NYCHA that we need to look at. We need to find out, because years ago, they dealt with bonds and trust and all that. We need to look at all those things in order to come out and agree on something. He said, Ms. Lozano, it's not a done deal. I have whatever I need to do to meet, even with the monitors of CAC members. I don't have a problem with doing that. That is not my intention. We have worked on a memorandum of understanding. For those who don't, it's a contractual agreement between NYCHA and the Citywide Council of Presidents. We've been doing that for the last 2 years with HUD. And HUD emphasized to us that if it's not to the liking of the residents in the city of New York, which is our housing residents, they are not going to agree on that trust. He mentioned about other cosmetics and all that other good stuff, but this is not supposed to happen. It is not a done deal. He encourages the input of each and every one of us. And I want people to feel free through the monitor's office, or to feel free to call me, because there are things that are being said out there that are not true. And I want to have, as NYCHA always repeats to us, I want to put forth transparency. So there are things happening And they're not, according to the chairman today, they're not looking at any legislation at this time until next year. And if this blueprint comes to a reality, we're not going to see any type of construction, any type of decision making until 2 years from now. And that's only the determining factor of this COVID that we all are experiencing and losing a lot of good people because of this virus, that we have to get a whole handle on it. So I just want to be able to have the opportunity to let all of you know that I am sitting with the stakeholders, which is the Citywide Council of Presidents, and we are working on behalf of each and every one of the residents in the city of New York. But Mr. Schwartz, we need you to put pressure and mandate them to go and clean house on the executive level in every department. We can't continue. That is a revenue right there. If there's 100 squatters, illegal squatters living in public housing, we're talking about $14,000 to $20,000 of revenue that could be utilized. That's maybe a second plan to consider. And that's all I have to say in one breath, if there's any questions.
Asha, may I just take a moment for a couple of things?
Yes, please.
I know, and I talk to Danny Barber regularly, and I know that CCOP is very active and is very much looking out for the residents. So I have no doubts about that, and I don't think anything different. In fact, I try to call Danny Barber about an hour and a half ago when I couldn't reach him, because I just wanted to talk to him about some issues. So
he has a health issue, so he's healing right now.
Well,
and we had a very candidly, we had a very trying day with the chairman, because it's like we're going around circles, and that's a lot of frustration within us. I only wanted to make it clear to a lot of people, because through my travels, I hear through third and fourth party, and you know, we're on this phone more than really having a life, because this is very serious, and we all are committed. We just want to be able to let everyone know that we're justice is peace, and we're not sleeping behind the wheel. And we're asking all the tough questions, because we don't feel, you know, we've been through this road, especially the ones that are veterans.
Yeah. Well, I don't think any of us feel that the CCOP is asleep at the switch. We hear from you, and that's helpful. And we have our lots of discussions with CCOP members and with Danny individually. I did want to clear up one thing, and I may have misheard you, so forgive me if I've got it wrong. But the blueprint is not a monitor program. The blueprint is the NYCHA management proposal. Some aspects of what we are doing at the monitorship will be in the blueprint, but for example, the Public Benefit Corporation is not something that involves the monitor, or has the monitor been a part of that. It's not within the agreement that governs what I can do. There may be a relationship down the road, but it's not something that we're involved in. So the blueprint it's important that any issues you have there be taken up with NYCHA, and the assembly bill that was filed and for which there's a hearing that I mentioned. I don't know if you were
right.
on.
No, there is a hearing, but according to the chairman, and that's another thing that now we got to go back to the table on the MOU agreement, because he pretty much told us that once this administration leaves, he has to make sure that when everything is said and done, that whoever comes to follow, so pretty much he was telling us he was going to retire, that we have to put forth some type of mandate to make sure that this continues. I just wanted to share it with CAC members, because I haven't been given the opportunity, and I wanted them to know that, you know, I'm humbly, you know, feeling very humble from the heart that I'm able to sit with each and every one of you to discuss what we're discussing. I just felt it necessary, Mr. Schwartz, that you know of everything that is existing? Because sometimes I feel like not everything is put before you.
No, we want to know that, and that's there's this sort of official side of it, which is this CAC meeting, but we're always available to you to talk about things. Mr. Russ can speak for himself, but I think part of his discussions, he's trying to anticipate different eventualities. So
Right.
So that's why he may be talking about different time periods and so forth. He's got to plan, but not every plan goes as you want. And he's right. There'll be a new administration. He's going to have to educate the new administration. So I think he's just trying to be as efficient and careful as he can, so that when those things happen, you'll know he has thought about them. But as I said, I'm sure he could speak for himself about those things.
But he said he's willing to open with anybody, even on my behalf, to speak with anyone who's willing to want to talk about it on a one-on-one. So he has the flexibility, and he seems to be genuine in that aspect.
Yes. I'm sure he'll make himself available. And we've had great cooperation on the CAC with the NYCHA senior people, as you'll see as we go through the rest of the meeting. But I just want to make the last point and repeat what I said before. We don't have to do it only in formal sessions. We always want to be available and talk. We go out and we visit. Danny's taken us on tours, and it's been helpful. So we're always available if you need us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Asha.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz.
Thank you, Ms. Lozano.
Ms. Lozano. We
You're
appreciate that update, and we appreciate the hard work and advocacy that CCOP, the Citywide Council of Presidents, is doing, and we're honored to have you join us on the CAC.
Thank you.
Also raised some important points about the transformation plan. So I'd like to now refer to my colleague on the NYCHA Monitor team, Elon Pata, to let us know more about the transformation plan, to put it in context for us, and to help dispel any misconceptions. And then we'll hear from Eva Trimble and Arvind. Is Arvind still on? Yes, Arvind Sahoni, who will give us our presentation. And then please listen closely because I'm going to ask every member on this call to please ask some good questions. Elon?
Thank you, Asha. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be brief because I know that Eva and Arvind have a lot to talk about with respect to where the plan is. I'll start out by just briefly introducing myself. Elon Para. I'm a member of the monitoring team. I'm an attorney by training, and I have over 10 years of public service experience working the city law department and at the mayor's office under the Bloomberg administration for a period of time during the de Blasio administration. I have to just start out by saying that the transformation plan and the work that NYCHA is working to undertake is it's expansive. It's very big, and I've been working closely with Eva and Arvind and their team over the last year, and it's been a pleasure working with them. And they're taking on a lot in putting this work together. There are a lot of moving parts. I know that Eva presented at the last CAC meeting at the beginning of October on the framework for the transformation plan and the components of the transformation plan and what was envisioned to be in the plan. It's great that it's out there for public comment. The monitoring team, and I know even Arvind and everyone is really looking for the public to be engaged, to provide commentary about it. Since October, NYCHA hired a series of subject matter experts, and they're continuing to work with those experts. And we've been attending those meetings and working with them and providing some guidance and some oversight in very distinct areas, areas that their team have identified are areas that need to be addressed immediately. And one of the things that's actually a really good win, I have to say, for now is that they're rolling out pilot programs. And one pilot program in particular is already 5 weeks in, related to work orders. It's being run up in Northern Queens. And you know, they're already starting to see some successes, which I think is great. Which highlights one of the key aspects of where the monitoring team comes from in terms of how we're approaching this is where there are, you know, improvements that can be made. We're working with NYCHA to try and make sure that those things can happen, and they can happen in tandem as things are being planned to the extent that they're going to be beneficial for the residents. So, you know, things are ongoing, they are happening, and the pilot programs that are working and the consultants that are providing guidance to NYCHA in crafting the transformation plan, this work has been going on for quite a bit of time. And what our team will continue to do is work closely with Arvin, with Eva, and with the team at NYCHA to provide guidance and to monitor their work in crafting the transformation plan and getting things going and getting to the point that they can start to make some really hard decisions, and then figuring out, well, how are these things going to be implemented and put into place. So so with that, I want to pass it on to Eva so that she can bring up her deck and talk a little bit more about the transformation plan.
Thank you, Alon, and thank you, Asha and Bart, for providing us the opportunity today to talk about the transformation planning work. It's been an incredibly collaborative process over the last 18 months or so to pull this together. We've had hundreds of engagements with residents and stakeholders, and have really pulled together, I think, an incredible set of ideas and visions for NYCHA. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up a very quick presentation just to give you a sense of the work that we're doing. Let me know if you can see this by just giving me a quick thumbs up. Good. Okay. So really quickly, high level, the transformation plan includes key organizational changes and key business process changes. So first, organizational changes for NYCHA include governance, which means changes to NYCHA's board and executive management structure. We're looking at how NYCHA is organized, and we're looking to better group functions together, streamline how decisions are made, and make sure that all parts of NYCHA are coordinating to move in the same direction. Second organizational change is we're changing how NYCHA is scaled at the operational level. And we're calling this a neighborhood model because we're trying to show that we're reducing NYCHA's scale to provide stronger oversight and management capacity. So for example, right now NYCHA has a 6-borough management structure, and we're going to 4 geographic boroughs. In addition, we have 21 regions, and we're moving to 30 neighborhoods. Again, this is all with the goals of bringing more eyes on the building, improving oversight and resource allocation, and allowing our directors to be able to have more accountability, because they're going to be more able to get to all of the sites, work directly with the property managers in a more direct way. Third and final organizational change is about how our central office team supports those properties and our operation functions. So we want to bring all of the central office functions that we can to the point of delivery at the properties. So property managers shouldn't have to wait for someone in central office to approve a new headcount or a budget mod. We want to have the central office staff working hand in hand with the operations at the sites. And we think this is going to have a result of having faster turnaround times for some of these functions. It's also going to help having the central office staff have the same sense of urgency for what's happening at the properties and understanding the need for bringing resources to the properties in a quicker and faster way. Next, NYCHA has a series of business process changes as part of the plan. This is definitely not everything. These are some highlights of how NYCHA is transforming to serve our residents better. Alon made reference to the work order reform, about how we're sequencing the work of skilled trades, and we're piloting that now in Western Queens. But we're also looking at the alternative work schedules, which we know has been a controversial and difficult program that we rolled out a little over a year ago. We know that it's not working the way we had intended, so we've been studying it, and we're now thinking of ways to make this program work better. We're talking about doing property-based budgeting, which will help property managers have more control of their properties and be able to resolve that conditions at the site much quicker. And finally, we heard over and over again about the difficulties in the annual recertification process. So we're looking at streamlining how the housing assistants work, as well as the portals and computer stations in all the property management offices are being retooled to be more user-friendly. As Bart made reference, the full transformation plan is on our website and available right now for public comment. You can submit comments through December 28th. In addition, we're holding 2 upcoming resident town halls, one on December 9th from 10 to 12, and one on Thursday, December 17th from 5:30 to 7:30. These town halls will actually be a full briefing on the Blueprint for Change, both the capital stabilization strategy, as well as this transformation plan strategy. So we really encourage our residents to tune into these town halls to learn as much as possible about the changes happening. I want to reiterate that this transformation plan right now is an unconstrained vision of what we want NYCHA to be. We know that we have a lot of problems that we need to fix, and we've been working with the monitor team to focus on compliance and better service delivery. We know also that we have significant budget constraints. So we are not under any false reality that we are going to be able to achieve everything in that transformation plan right away. But our goal is to achieve that eventually, because we know it's the right set of policies and strategies. So we are also working with the monitor team now on an implementation plan. And the implementation plan will show how we are allocating resources in order to achieve as much as possible over the next few years and implement all these policies to better serve you. So with that, I am happy to take any questions. And Asha, do you want me to stop sharing or leave this up on the screen? You're muted, Asha.
It might be helpful if you could go back to slide 5, one slide before this, just so everyone can digest it for a few more minutes, and then we will open up to questions.
Well, I might add something about that's related to this particular slide, but also to the broader picture. And Alon also referred to it, and that is the expertise that NYCHA has been bringing in and working with in order to get the best advice that's available on these issues, and to think this through, have a pilot program if that's needed, and learn from these experts and learn from experience and what works best for NYCHA, as I think all of you know, because a plan works in a small public housing organization, it doesn't mean it's going to work in something as large as NYCHA. But the other side of that coin is, as you look at this, it's an effort to bring the services closer to each development, so that the people who need the help, who know the residents, who know what's needed, they are empowered to make more decisions. They'll have to be trained. I don't know, Eva, if you want to address that at all, but they'll be trained on how to make a budget, how to manage a budget, how to stay within a budget. Those are all things that will need to be done, among the things that need to be done to make this work. But the intent being to drive the services down to where the people who need them and know best have more empowerment. And that's not going to happen overnight.
So true. Thank you. Eva, I'll ask that you stop sharing, please, so that we could see the committee. Thank you.
Eva, did I misstate anything, or is that?
No, that's all correct. We have
Good.
already begun training for our property management staff on how to do property-based budgeting and how to have more control over their budgets and do budget modifications. We are working on a bigger training plan as part of the implementation for all levels of the organization in order to improve customer service, skills training, and everything like that.
So important. Thank you. I would now like to turn to the
The
committee.
book I'm reading, The Service
Questions?
Culture. The Service Culture.
Excellent. We'll have to get a copy of that.
I'll give you one of mine. I bought more than one.
So important, because one of the main issues that we hear is complaints about the lack of customer service mentality. So I hope to hear that that's being improved in this organizational plan. Okay, who would like to go first with questions? Please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Then ask that you unmute yourself if you're not speaking. Please. Okay, while everyone's formulating their questions, I'll ask the first question. I know one of the strategies that you mentioned that's being looked at is the AWS, the Alternative Work Systems Plan, and that a lot of people complained about pain points in that process. It was a plan that seemed good in theory, but when you actually roll it out without having sufficient staffing and budgeting and the planning for hours, it actually seemed to make things almost worse rather than better. So looking at AWS, what are some of the specific improvements that residents can expect to see as you continue to tweak that system?
So we are still thinking about how to tweak it. The goal of having extended service days is still something we'd like to achieve, but we want to make sure it works for everyone. And so we worked with our consultant, the Public Policy Lab, provided a handful of recommendations for us to consider. We're thinking about how to maybe test some of those recommendations, because we don't want to roll something else out that isn't going to work. So I really believe in the idea of testing some of these recommendations before we roll them out across all of NYCHA. And so we're looking at ways to think about the caretaker staff differently. Not every caretaker is created equal. There's different types of caretakers. And so maybe different schedules would work better for different caretakers. That's one option. We're also thinking about ways to, assign work in different ways. And so we're looking at all of these options, and we're hoping to be able to come up with a new program, like I said, that achieves the initial goal of providing longer service hours, but also has the impact of cleaner grounds and buildings.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing as part of the monitor team to assist in that kind of analysis for whatever the project may be, is to emphasize the use of analytics and to gather data. We're not meeting any resistance to that. Everybody agrees that's the way to do it, or that's one of the ways to help figure out what the best way to proceed is. And so we've worked on creating dashboards for different issues. The group, I've mentioned this before in other CAC meetings and community meetings, that the group we work with, which is called PTAD, which I still don't know what it stands for, but they're very good. They're the analytical.
Performance tracking analytics.
Okay, well, that's what they do. And they do a good job of it. So that's a resource that all of us have been using, and it's something that NYCHA has not been doing before. They've not really taken advantage of that group or of applying analytics to the problems. So that should be a help in figuring out some of these issues.
Hi, can I speak?
Thank you. Ms. Ortiz, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Actually, it's more of a question than a comment on AWS. One of the reasons why AWS is not working is because there is no one outside between 6 a.m. and 8 a.m. And then there is no one outside.
Everyone, please mute if you're not speaking.
There is no one outside after 4:30. So that defeats the purpose. Is not working. And yet now they're adding the maintenance staff to the AWS schedule as well. So if something is not working, how are you going to add to it? Having them come in at 6 a.m. and leaving at 7:30 p.m., you're losing 2 hours in the morning and 4:35, so it's 3 hours in the afternoon because you see nobody. Elevators are not being cleaned. The original intent of this, and I say this because I sat in on the original meeting 4 years ago, and Mr. Barber was there as well with this AWS. And there were concerns regarding the staff coming in early and leaving late. And one of the things that I said was, no one's going to come out to clean elevators because that was the intent, that when people come home from work, that the elevators and the lobbies would be clean, and that is not happening. What I did say was, as opposed to having these schedules, because it was about reducing the weekend overtime, was to do a scattered schedule, 4 days on, 2 days off, or you have two teams that overlap for 2 days. And they did not even listen to this. So you have one thing that's absolutely not working. They added maintenance now to it where it's not going to work. And yet it is the developments and the residents that are paying for a decision that we did not want to begin with.
Thank you for that feedback. I will say that the even our consultant did admit that the maintenance worker AWS is probably better applied to the maintenance worker staff than the caretaker staff. The maintenance worker AWS will allow residents to have appointments after work, later in the evening and on the weekends, which has always been something we've heard from our residents, to be able to accommodate their work schedules in a different way. So I think, unlike caretakers, where it's a very different functional task of work, for the maintenance workers, I think AWS does make sense, but we are taking into account all the lessons learned through the caretaker program, as well as from our consultants, as we're applying it to the maintenance worker. And the maintenance worker, it's been, we've been working really hard to think through how to structure that, and it will be, it's been proposed now to roll out, I think, later in the spring, but we're still working on it.
Ms. Butler, did you have a comment? Please unmute if you wanted to speak.
I'm just okay. This AWS schedule is just, it's so mind-boggling to me, because I see it day in and day out. You have workers. I leave sometimes at 6 o'clock in the morning on the weekends, and you have the one caretaker in the building who can't go upstairs because they're by themselves. It's 6 o'clock. Why are they here if they can't go upstairs? And they spend so much of their time pulling garbage down from each floor. When are you getting time to clean this building, actually? Elevator service, it's been horrific. I just don't see a point in the AWS schedule. I really don't. It needs to go back to the way it was. If you have not fixed the problem by creating another problem, go back to the drawing board, try it again. Or go to your workers and find out what is the issues, why they keep coming across all these issues, and figure out from them how to work these schedules, because it's obvious this schedule is just not going to work. And then to add the maintenance in, like the other lady said, adding the maintenance in, it does not make sense if it's not working for caretakers. Even if they're here, are they going to be allowed to come into the buildings after a certain time if nobody else is with them? Because it's a safety concern. That was just mind-boggling to me. I'm sorry. I know I was making expressions, but it's just frustrating because we go through it. And if you're not here to see it day in and day out, then it doesn't affect you. It affects us. That was it. Thank you.
For that, I know there's been a lot of frustration around that system. I'm curious, Eva, related to that, is there a plan to add more caretakers to make that system more effective?
We're reviewing all options as part of the budget discussions right now. So I can't say for sure, but we are looking at all the options.
And then I wanted to ask a question about the neighborhood model that you mentioned. Seems like a good idea to have people be more hands-on and to be able to be more connected with each of the buildings that are within their unit. But I'm curious if you could talk more about how having collapsing, Queens and Staten Island together, for example, will be more beneficial. It seems that you're making a bigger group than you had before.
I'm actually going to ask Arvin to jump in here since he helped do all the modeling for the neighborhood.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thanks, Eva. So I think one, on the neighborhood model itself, the sort of the reason we wanted to move in this direction is that we heard a lot from residents in the engagement sessions around, things used to work better in the mid 90s, early 90s, when we had a much more localized view of NYCHA. It wasn't a one size fits all. It wasn't a formula driven approach. It was a very customized level of service to each development. And so the goal of this model is to go back to that as much as we can, to say what we need in the Lower East Side versus East Harlem versus Brownsville, the South Bronx, or Canarsie is going to be very different. And how do we have a set of people on our staff whose job it is to understand what those needs are? Are the needs more about exterminators? Is it a really sort of a big caretaker issue with a lot of waste issues? Is it elevators that are acting up in these places? I think having that model is designed to provide that more local service. On the specific question around Queens and Staten Island, so right now those two have been lumped together as a borough management structure for a while, but they would not be the same neighborhood. So Staten Island would be treated as a separate neighborhood in that model. I would have a director who's overseeing that part of the city. Over time, the goal is actually to move skilled trade staff to that level too, to have them, so they're not going back and forth between Queens and Staten Island. So yes, they'd be considered a sort of broader borough, which I know does not make geographic sense, but it's sort of the numbers add up. But the neighborhoods will still be different. You still have Western Queens, Eastern Queens, the Rockaways, and Staten Island, all as separate neighborhoods in that model. They wouldn't be sharing staff in that same sense.
Arvin, could I ask a follow-up question on that? When you first designed this and you tried to match the needs of a neighborhood with the right staff, hopefully there'll be improvements in the neighborhood, and there'll be different problems that they may have, or the problems that those people are good at solving are in a different development. Is the system built to be nimble enough to move people where they're needed? Is it work that way?
It's a great question. So I think yes, it is, and it's a delicate balance, because we've also heard from some residents saying, you're moving my property management staff too much sometimes, where they're only here for a year, they can't get to know this place, you move them after that, like what's the point? Why even bother? I had a woman out in Coney Island say, I've had 4 property managers in 5 years. Like, what do I do with that? How do I understand what to do with this person when they're new every single time? So we want to avoid doing that, but also, yes, I think we want to also notice the skills of our staff and say if this person is better suited for this neighborhood, absolutely make that change over time. Because the goal is to have that person, especially the director at that level and their staff, spend a lot of time understanding the neighborhood, not just the development, but how the development exists in the city more broadly. I think we're also philosophically saying that a lot of these sites were built to isolate housing residents from the city. We think this is a chance to actually think about NYCHA developments in the context of the city in a very different way that can be very powerful. We know we have to get the basic stuff right first. That's not going to matter until we can clean the buildings and keep things moving and running. But that's part of why we want to go to this model, is to have that nimbleness to really serve in a much more specific, sort of less formula-driven way that we've been doing.
Asha, can I speak? This is Robert Hall.
Yes, please proceed, Mr. Hall.
Okay, I have so many questions and I don't know what to do next. But in any event, I want to start by saying this is very problematic because the residents are not educated on this entire blueprint process. My first question goes to, I guess, the attorney, Mr. Para. Is the transition form synonymous with the blueprint, or are they two different entities? I just want that as an answer.
You're
Can
muted,
someone
Alon.
answer that?
I can answer that. Or at least I think I can, Mr. Hall, if I've got the question right. The blueprint plan is NYCHA's proposal, which includes a number of elements. One element of that is the combination of the transformation plan and the implementation of the transformation plan. So NYCHA is managing the blueprint. The monitor is working with NYCHA on the transformation and implementation, and they hope to fold that into the blueprint. I think that's the way I look at it and understand it. Eva, is that have I got it?
Yeah. I mean, the blueprint for change is a series of strategies. One strategy is about capital stabilization of our properties, which includes the proposed housing preservation trust. And another strategy is the transformation plan, which is about how we change ourselves as an organization. The two work together, obviously, but they're two different strategies underneath our blueprint for change.
Okay, so where does the resident input come into factor here, or does it? That's my question.
Sure, there's multiple areas for resident input, and to be clear, we've been engaging with residents from the start of both of these through various conversations. Right now, the transformation plan is out for public comment, and we've been having resident town halls. We had a series of resident town halls over the late summer, early spring, that included both conversations on the stabilization strategy as well as the transformation strategy. And we're doing another round right now with 2 more sessions this month. So we've been gathering resident feedback throughout this whole process. As part of the stabilization plan and the proposed preservation trust, which is the legislation that's proposed in Albany right now, there is a hearing next week, as Bart mentioned, and there's a city council hearing next week as well, which would have opportunities for residents to provide feedback.
Okay, well, I just want to say that when you go to Albany, the residents need more input. There's a big problem in the communications gap of totally understanding what this entire transition consists of. And I'm getting that from several residents, and I'm trying to educate my own residents. So I sincerely hope that the best interests of the residents come to fruition more than anything else at this time, because it's very problematic. And I don't want to blame everything on the pandemic. That does have a lot to do with this. All right. There's several people trying to get in on the chat also. And I'm listening. I see what they're putting down. But to make a long story short, there needs to be more time and more education as it lends itself to this entire process, because this is going to change the entire scope of how we live forever. So I only ask that that be taken into consideration.
Understood. Thank you.
I have a question.
That's largely what I was hoping to do today, because the most important thing for me as a member of the monitor team is to help residents really understand what's going on and what this transformation plan means and how it's going to impact residents. So I really appreciate your statements, Mr. Hall. And if you have any specific questions to really help break down the different pieces, let's get those out on the table right now. And most importantly, I encourage every single resident within NYCHA to use this time period. We still have until December 28th and I'm sure feedback will still be able to be continued even after that, but especially now during this open period, to please ask your questions, state your concerns, make your voices heard. That's really why I wanted to have this meeting today, just to emphasize that this period is open and we want to help facilitate residents' voices being part of this process.
Eva, maybe it would be helpful to let everybody know how they can communicate any comments they have. And I know that whatever comments NYCHA gets, they're sharing with the monitor as well. So you don't have to do it more than once.
Yes, so the NYCHA website has a page for Blueprint for Change, and you can submit comments through the website on the transformation plan, any aspect of it, including the stabilization and capital strategy proposals.
I'd like to just chime in very quickly. One of the things that has a lot of residents concerned is that they believe that this transition makes their developments private, that they're going completely private. To my understanding, the way I understand it is that they have private management managing the building, but the building is not private. The building still belongs to NYCHA. So this is something that needs to be very, very clear, because that's the mindset and that's the fear, that the buildings are going private and that down the line they will lose their apartments.
Yes, we understand that that's been a concern, and we've been trying our best to clearly communicate both the process that's involved in the RAD impact transfers, as well as what we're proposing here for the Housing Preservation Trust, which would be a public ownership structure. It's a public benefit corporation. So we would appreciate any suggestions you have on the communications. I understand that we've done some resident mailers, both through the rent bills as well as through resident emails that we have on file. So we have been trying to communicate some of these changes and information about the town halls and the public comment process to residents. But if you have suggestions on some of those communications, please feel free to reach out to me or Arvin, and we're happy to talk through them if you have ideas on how we can improve how we're communicating them.
Is the development going private with private management?
If you're going through a RAD or PAC transition, it is a transition to a private landlord through a deed transfer, where NYCHA I think typically holds the deed. I'm not an expert on the RAD and PAC transfers, so I don't want to talk to that. But for the Housing Preservation Trust, for our capital stabilization strategy, it's not privatization. It is a public transfer.
Now, I know that our focus is on the org plan, but there was so many questions around the public transfer. And this question is for Bart and Elon. What, if any, role does the monitor have with that piece, the public trust piece?
The HUD agreement does not cover the public. It didn't exist when the HUD agreement was negotiated. The public trust blueprint did not exist. So it's really, we're really focused on what's in the HUD agreement, where there may be an impact on the items that are in the HUD agreement. We'll still want to comment and be involved. For example, governance. To take that for example, if we thought the board of NYCHA that's left in NYCHA needs more training, which is one thing I do think they need more training about the role of a board. How are they going to interact with the board of the new public trust entity? And how is the public trust entity board going to be trained? And what is the overlap? Some of the overlap is planned because it helps for coordination. And some And the lack of overlap in some cases may be negative. So we'll look at that. But the financial side of it is needs Congress, it needs New York State, it needs HUD, it needs a lot of things that are well beyond what is the HUD agreement. And I know this is something that HUD is discussing with NYCHA, and NYCHA is discussing with the elected officials. They really don't have to come to us to do the public benefit corporation and other elements of the blueprint. Where it overlaps with what we're doing, or where our work will be inserted into the blueprint, then we have oversight and the contributions to make.
I also want to add that for both Mr. Hall and Ms. Ortiz, for your residents and anyone else out there, on our website under the Blueprint for Change, in addition to the areas to make public comment, we have posted a frequently asked questions document, which has a lot of these questions you're raising tonight. The document does have those included, so I'd encourage you all to read through that frequently asked questions document to learn more about some of the details behind these plans.
I'd also add to that if it's a long document, but it's in chapters, and the chapters describe the various areas. So if there's a particular area that you're interested in, you can go right to that and focus on it. It'd be good if you could read the whole thing, and do read the whole thing. But if you have something particularly in mind, the chapter headings will be very helpful.
Yeah. This is Robert Hall again. One of the things that really hits you is the elementary figure for residents to go from Section 9 to Section 8. They no longer have the protections. Now, are the protections going to be negotiated? And if they are, to what extent are they going to be negotiated? These are fundamental questions that really, you have to dive in, and there needs to be some type of mutual understanding.
Yes, I know that that's a big concern for residents, and I know that the chair has had multiple conversations and through the town halls where we've explained our plans to ensure resident protections through the trust and through the legislation, so that the resident protections you have now under Section 9, you would have under Section 8, including the right to organize tenant associations, and the 964 process we will be transferring over as well to Section 8.
Well, I'm hoping that the 964 rules and regulations stay in place even now during this transition, because like I said, a lot of residents need a lot of education on this process in its entirety.
Excuse me, but I just want to add that we did discuss that today, and it is incorporated. Anything that's been written in regards to the transformation as well as the blueprint for change, 964 is incorporating that. We're still awaiting to get answers to some of the questions that I'm hearing this evening. And we're supposed to meet again next week to see if we get those answers. But yes, we are going to be protected according from the Section 9 to the Section 8. And anything else, the chairman reassured us that he will make sure so that it can be disseminated to everyone. Just so you guys would know.
Thank you, everyone, for these important questions. And let's have our question and answer period continue. I wanted to, one of the questions that I had for Eva is looking through the transformation plan and the various chapters. I did not see a chapter on safety and security. And that was the focus of our last CAC meeting, because that is an issue that's a big concern to all of the residents. So what, if anything, is NYCHA going to do to address that in the transformation plan?
Yes, thank you for that question, Asha. It's a really fair point. And in full disclosure, we have been so focused on the operational changes and the structural changes that I talked about that we hadn't gotten a chance to really focus on the safety and security issues, which we know are critical across all of the developments. So far in our public comment process, that has been the majority of comments that we've received from residents about the plan. And so we are working now to pull that together and come up and discuss some strategies around safety and security so that it will definitely be addressed in the final document.
This is Ms. Lozano again. I'm pleased to hear that, because another thing that we discussed is that NYCHA is really thinking about getting and phasing off the intercom because they see that it's not working. The systems that are put in place, the CCTV, has been a disaster, and safety and security hasn't been on top of even addressing. I know that when we had several meetings in RAD, we had went before the safety and security, and one of the things a lot of the residents were complaining about, it was just simple things as lighting, external and internal lighting, and safety and security department hadn't done nothing. They said they were going to do something. We spoke to them about 2.5 years ago, and yet we haven't heard about a lot of developments that were asking for that receive it. So that's one of the things that, you know, I had to emphasize, that in NYCHA there's always these new initiatives, but they never come to surface to be effective. And safety and security is one of them. That's a department that I don't even know why it still exists, because we have people still coming in and out. A safety issue that I mentioned today was you could put your finger in some of these illegal apartments that people are living in. That's the safety and security. That means we could have just about anybody that are literally staying there for free, and we're living next door to them, and we're paying our rent, and we have a derelict living there. So, you know, it's gotten worse, but we don't hear about safety and security. Why is that? I'm questioning that. Why haven't we heard anything? No report, no nothing.
Yes,
Maybe we need to have somebody, Ms. Schimble, to answer those questions, because it's always very vague. I know 2 apartments in my development. I could put my finger in the lock. I as a resident leader, I can put my finger in a lock where I know that that's an apartment that a dead person, you know, is gone. That's safety. So it doesn't even matter if our cameras are working right about now. So maybe we need to ask, maybe through you, we need to, you know, let safety and security know that, you know, that we are paying attention, and they are definitely not doing anything. I call them the biggest pork belly in housing.
This is Bart. Our last CAC meeting was dedicated totally to safety and security, and the last report was also primarily safety and security, and it's still at the top of our list. And I think you know, to give credit where it's due, the fact that we were raising it and the residents were raising it is why it's getting into the transformation plan, and that's fine. That's the way things are supposed to work. But we also made some recommendations in our report and in our discussions in the last CAC meeting about reorganizing the safety and security, because we saw the same problems that you're describing. So we will be staying on top of that.
Please do, Mr. Schwartz, because we have given safety and security, and consequently, the EVP there was a cop on the beat in the Bronx. We knew him before he became an EVP. And for some reason or another, the minute he got that position, once again, all that police enforcement mentality and community-oriented mentality went out the window. Since his existence has been put in being the appointee as the EVP. Just so you know, just for your information.
Well, you know, you make a good point. But it's more than an individual. The individual, you have to have the right individual, I agree, but people change, different people come in. So it's important to have a system that works and it has procedures and is funded sufficiently, and that there is oversight and inspection to make sure people are doing that they're supposed to do. So changing a person may help, but that's not the fundamental problem.
No. I get what you're saying, Mr. Schwartz, but this is the problem. We had went and presented to
I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing.
No. We presented to NYCHA, just so you know. It was a Black-owned security company. And this went through our local senator many years ago in the Bronx, okay? And NYCHA, this was it was a lot more affordable. You were able to look at it from the TV and on your phone, from the stairwell to your hallway to where you live, okay? And NYCHA, that's one of the squander. That's a squander. They felt that CCTV worked for everybody. Now, mind you, this organization was willing to train our residents, which would have slotted to Section 3 and provided jobs, and they would have cohesively be working with the NYPD. And safety and security, that is there now, shut it down because they said they already had contracts already with CCTV, and we all know what CCTV has been to all of us. It was a hot mess, and it's not even branded to. It's not even connected to the local precincts. So if somebody gets raped or robbed or whatever the case may be, it's after the fact. And you got to be lucky if you're going to see it on the screen, because after 20 days, it's gone. And safety and security was aware of that, Mr. Schwartz. This is nothing new to them. Just for your information.
Thank you, Ms. Lozano.
That's all I
as
have
we
to
focused
say.
on our safety and security issues are really top of mind for all residents, and hopefully NYCHA is making those top of mind as well as they move forward in these planning. So I wanted to just ask if there are any final questions focused specifically on the transformation plan, which is the organizational plan, the piece that presented on today. Any further questions? I did have one last question related to the piece you hit on with regard to the recertifications system and the lease recertifications. I know that's been an important issue to our CAC member, Nancy Ortiz and Joel Gross, who've been really leaders on some of the important changes that needs to happen to make it a more user-friendly system for all the residents. I'm glad to see that that's part of the transformation plan, and I wanted to see if you could end the Q&As talking a little bit more about that.
Sure. I'll say that we are right now, we've been focused on the digital changes to the e-portal. And so our IT team has been working closely with Public Housing Tenancy Administration to go screen by screen and also question by question, because we want to make sure that we're asking the right questions in the recertification process, that we're not being confusing or redundant. And so we're going through that right now and redesigning the portal. We're looking to do some testing, I think, right after the new year. And I believe we're going to be reaching out for some resident participation in that testing of the system. And then our goal, I think right now, is to be able to launch those new screens in March. But I'd like to confirm with IT that we're still on schedule for that March release. And then we're also looking at, as I mentioned, that the housing assistant workload and thinking through how housing assistants help residents through this process. We've talked a lot about expanding the network with our not-for-profit organizations and partners that also work closely with our residents, some of which I think are CAC members. We've been working with the Center for Court Innovation specifically, since they work really closely with residents in housing court, and about how we explain things like rent calculation and work together to make that, to improve that. In addition, there have been some policy changes through HUD that could make the system easier. And we're looking at all of those possibilities to change how we conduct the recertifications by adopting some of these new HUD rules. And so we're working to understand that now and hope to maybe roll out some of those changes in the next year as well. So there's still more to come on the recertification process.
And just one thing I'll add to that quickly, just to tie Eva's last comment to where we started on sort of the customer service points too. I think part of, we keep hearing all the time, this lack of customer service or the lack of anyone whose job it is to sort of respond to resident issues in a timely way and to sort of to manage things in a way that is empathetic and understanding, but also effective. And if you do rip the housing assistant from a burdensome process, that's a potential role or a person who understands the development that could be providing more of that customer service type work. So I think that's another sort of secondary benefit beyond just unburdening the resident workload and doing these research every year.
So am I hearing you saying that the housing assistant will be empowered to really help the residents get some of the important work that they need done? Because right now I know that it's very frustrating for residents who feel like you have to email, every person at the top of NYCHA, elected officials, and call the CCC a million times. What mechanism is going to be in the new structure to allow concerns to get timely addressed?
So we're looking at, we've actually, this isn't specific just to housing assistance, but we are looking across the board at what we call performance metrics. And so we expect that we'd have performance metrics for all of these functions. For example, for housing assistance, we do have tracking of how many recertifications files they have, how long they've been open, what the status is. And so we are looking to work as part of the whole neighborhood model, like we said, of having more capacity to manage and hold people accountable. We do hope that this means that property managers will be able to sit with housing assistants in a different way and go through their workload and go through those types of metrics and reporting. One of the values in the plan that we talk a lot about is using data to drive decisions. And this is a good example of that. We want to be able to track housing assistant workload, see what they're doing, what's going on with recertifications that are overdue, and what do we need to bring everybody into compliance and move things along. And as Arvin made the great point, is that we think through these improvements in technology and improvements of working with our partner organizations, we'll be able to free up housing assistant time to provide other levels of customer service.
Yeah, and I think specifically on the work repair part of that issue, one of the things we kept hearing from residents saying, like, oh, things were better in sort of the early mid-90s. Part of that very specific story that we often heard was that I used to really go downstairs and get an answer as to where that ticket was. Someone in that office knew where my ticket was, when it was going to happen. They knew the name of the person. And I think, like Eva mentioned, moving to the neighborhood model, moving the responsibility of knowing where all those tickets are and who's responsible for them and when they're going to happen will be much more local. So instead of being at a borough office, that's going to be at a neighborhood, maybe eventually, hopefully at some point back at a development level, where a superintendent can say, I know what's happening today at this development. I know every ticket that's going to be completed here today. I'm the one who can answer that question for you. I think we're trying to get back to that mentality of having people that can actually answer these questions honestly and accurately and really give people the answers that they need.
And then lastly, what's the timeline? When are residents going to actually see improvements in their lives and in their developments?
So we're still working on the full implementation schedule. And like I said, a lot of that has to do with the final decisions on what our budget resources are going to be for the next year. However, the number one priority right now is moving to this neighborhood model, and we plan to implement those changes right after the new year.
Great, thank you. Are there any last questions? Thank you. We really appreciate that thorough update, and we will continue to ask questions as you continue to roll out and work on the implementation of all of these new plans. But it's encouraging to hear that this work is being done. So with that, I will move next in our agenda to thank you both for that presentation, and to use this opportunity to ask any updates to our members to please share those now. Ms. Mack, can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on with DIFTA? Are there any new initiatives you can update us on?
Sure. I have something that is very positive to report on and right in time for the winter holidays, which is NYCHA and the Department for the Aging are partnering with Habitat for Humanity to paint 10 senior centers. So the project is called Brush with Kindness. And the team will not only bring paint to paint the senior centers and give them a fresh look, but they will also really sit down with the senior center staff to discuss what color they want for which room and whether they would want to have patterns or designs for the walls. So I have also seen some of the samples that they have done in the past for other places, and some even have murals on the walls. So we are really very excited about this, and we are looking forward to these 10 senior centers having a fresh look. And hopefully we'll do 10 a year, and we'll eventually get to all of our NYCHA located senior centers.
That is good news update. Thank you for that. Chief Gottesman, can you please give us an update from the security perspective, NYPD statistics?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Can please proceed.
You can hear me? Okay. So I just wanted to give everybody, okay, thank you. I just wanted to give everybody an update on our crime statistics citywide for public housing. This is the period ending Sunday, November 29th. Crime is slightly up in public housing, 1.6%. We track crime based on the 7 indices put out by the FBI. That includes murder, rape, robbery, felony assault, burglary, grand larceny, and auto theft. So we're just slightly up citywide. What we're really trying to focus on right now is our shootings, what we call violence. The entire calendar year, our shootings were pretty steady until May 10th. And then they sort of erupted citywide, not just in housing, but everywhere in the city. And housing, of course, is no exception. Traditionally, the folks who live in housing experience about 4 times the number of shooting incidents than other people on average citywide. The population is about 400,000 or 5% of the city, but we historically receive about 22% of the shootings citywide. So that's very disproportionate. And that's something that we've seen throughout year after year. It's not a one-time thing. This year, our shooting incidents are up 95%. That's almost double, right? 100% would be exactly double. We have 293 shooting incidents citywide in public housing versus 150 this time last year. And our shooting victim count has slightly more than doubled. We're about 105% of what we were last year, 350 versus 171. And that's very troubling. I was on a meeting earlier today with the Violence Response Group. It's a NYCHA group created by the Housing Authority, chaired by Chief Nelson, Safety and Security Vice President at NYCHA. And we're trying to get our hands on the causes of violence. And, you know, we basically know that folks who carry guns are using them. There is, like I said, almost a doubling of our shootings. Very, very disturbing. And it was worse. If I recall, July, we were almost at quadruple. If you look at the month of July, which was probably our worst month this year, June wasn't much better. But July, we were at like 366%. If you just look at July 2020 versus July 2019. So we have folks out there carrying firearms. we really need everyone's help, and we're asking people to just let us know, give us some intelligence on who's doing it, if they're being stored somewhere in the facilities, where they're being stored. We get called from maintenance workers, NYCHA management. They find guns in slop sinks. They find firearms in cable boxes in the public infrastructures within the housing authority. And of course, we act on intelligence and we execute search warrants. The other day, we took 2 guns out of an apartment in the Bronx. And we're still making gun arrests. Our gun arrests are up significantly this year, 355 versus 228. That's a 55 or 56% increase. And we seized 348 guns inside of public housing in 2020. So we are working very hard to take these guns off the street, whether they're in housing, whether they're outside or in the area around public housing. But we need everybody's help. We need intelligence, we need information, and we're asking people to basically tell us where they're seeing people holding firearms, passing them from one to another, or if they have any inside information on an apartment where an illegal firearm may be kept. We'd like to know about it. We have methods to try to intervene, get the gun out of that apartment. Sometimes it results in a search warrant and arrests. Other times we have other methods that I'm not going to go into on this call, where we just try to get that gun out of the apartment because the violence is not it's not where we're comfortable with. Nearly double from the year before is not where you want to be. So we're looking forward to a really good 2021, but we're not there yet. And I'll open up if anyone has any questions regarding this or anything else.
Yeah, Chief, this is Bart. I've got I don't know if it's so much a question, and maybe we can do it offline, but and you know, I used to be in the U.S. Attorney's Office. We didn't do a lot of street crimes, but we still prosecuted a lot of, especially when it came to narcotics, a lot of the kind of people that carry guns. And that's really kind of my question. It's one thing to get direct information about whether somebody has a gun, but there's a lot of indirect kind of information that you want as well. If you know that somebody's dealing out of an apartment, chances are there's a gun in there, or more than a gun. So again, maybe we do this offline, but I'd like to get a better sense of how that this is not siloed, that you're getting that where there's information about a problem, where there or somebody's doing something illegal out of an apartment, that you don't just have to you don't have to wait for a word that there's a gun. You could logically think that there'll be a gun. There's a gun there, and that almost, I don't want to say that squatters are all carrying guns, but people who were there illegally, that was raised before as a problem. Maybe there's a broader look that you have to take at this to try to figure out where the guns likely are, as opposed to where they've been seen. So if there's a way we can help you with that, or we could talk about that a little bit, I'd like to do it. I spent a fair amount of time with Chauncey Parker.
Sure. Yeah.
And if we could maybe if we could talk maybe all together about that, maybe we can figure out some things to help protect the residents more.
Yeah, we welcome any and all help. You know, I was listening to what everyone had to say.
I know you do.
Yeah, and we appreciate it. Just one thing about the cameras. I know a young woman brought something up about cameras. NYCHA has been very helpful in making many of their camera feeds available to us, where we can go and monitor public spaces 24/7. And my last count is that we have access to a little bit north of 6,900, almost 7,000 cameras in NYCHA's 17,000 plus camera infrastructure. That's significant. At any moment we could just go on and make observations, look at footage that's already recorded when we weren't able to look at it live, and very, very helpful when it comes to evidentiary presentations to grand juries, and building a case. And again, these are all, everyone's familiar with the cameras. These are all overt, they're not hidden. These are cameras that are plain to people. They could see them. Some folks don't act like they're cameras there. Some of the things we see, it's almost like, you know, they did a shooting right in front of a camera. But it is helpful in the convictions and getting the indictments prior to the conviction. And we welcome more cameras. NYCHA has been very, very benevolent in sharing that with us, and it's probably just going to expand. I don't see it. You know, I don't see it shrinking. So I know one of the resident leaders had an issue with access to cameras through a security company, which is a different issue than I'm bringing up. But I just want everyone to know that your police department has access to a good percentage of the NYCHA cameras. And when I say good percentage, it's not the majority. It's very expensive to give access and to have recording capabilities and storage capabilities. But we do have access to a good many. Like I said, about 7,000 out of the 17,000.
If I may, when you say access, does that mean that if you ask to see something, you can get to see it? Because what we've heard is that nobody's looking at them unless the police come and ask, can we see this? Can we see that? So I think there's a frustration that there may be a lot of cameras and there may be a lot of footage, but nobody's looking at it.
So
and I don't think that's your job, by the way. I don't think it's the police department's job to be looking at everything that NYCHA has on its video. So when I can understand you getting access when you ask, but you're only asking because there's been an incident, probably.
So we ask when there's an incident, and we also ask when there's a condition that we want to view live. But very important, we have access whenever we want from my computer in my office, from my cell phone. Every member of the NYPD that has credentialing rights. Obviously, someone in the academy is not going to have access to cameras right away. When he or she gets into an assignment, then they get access. But as long as they're assigned to public housing, they have access to close to 7,000 of the 17,000 cameras, which is significant.
But you're not expecting them to be watching their phones and accessing the cameras. That's not really your job, is it? Seems to me that's not your job.
So I'll just tell you what we have. So there's a unit called Viper. Their job is to monitor 15 public housing developments 24/7. And there have been different models of Viper over the years. The latest model is that they work in the PSA, with the exception of Staten Island. In Staten Island, it's at the precinct, 120th precinct. But they're in the station house and they're watching the cameras live 24/7. Obviously, some developments have upwards of 500 cameras. It's very hard to watch 500 cameras at once. It's actually impossible. There's not enough monitor space. But the cameras rotate. And there is 24/7 coverage in those 15 developments, which equal about 3,114 cameras. Don't ask me why I know that number by heart. I just do. So those 15 developments have police officers watching it live, and that's been going on since about 1997. The remainder of the 7,000 cameras we have access to, we're not watching live, only on an as-need basis. So if there's a condition that we have to look at or a past crime, we'll just go on our own. The remainder of the 17,000 or the 10,000 that we don't have access to, that's when we reach out to the NYCHA CCTV unit. Paul Silvers, he's their chief, and they come down. If it's a serious incident, they'll come down within an hour and get us access. If there's a shooting or a police-involved incident, we'll have access within an hour. So it's really a wonderful relationship. But I understand the frustration of the young lady who, I guess, wanted her own access, if I understood her correctly. But, and as a resident, there are private buildings I'm aware of where residents do have access to security footage from their, living room and so on. They just want her to know that, your police department does have access, and we are watching the cameras. And there is a unit, at least in those 15 developments, whose job it is to actually watch it in 24 hours a day.
So what, do you know what percentage of the guns that you do recover are from those 15 developments compared to everything else?
I could run those numbers, but we don't get a tremendous amount of gun arrests out of those camera views. The majority of our gun arrests are actually by officers' observations. After the arrest, it helps if there's cameras to go back and find things. But in real time, we don't make a tremendous number of gun arrests live using those cameras. And there's a whole science behind it. We do have some incredible footage, which is not for this forum, but we do have footage of shootings happening and other things happening on camera. Again, it helps tremendously when you get to the grand jury portion of this. And, as a former federal prosecutor, footage speaks volumes. It doesn't lie. It tells the complete story. Someone's claiming they didn't have a firearm in their hand. They didn't shoot anyone. And the video shows otherwise. We know what's going to happen. So it's very, very helpful. It's a tremendous tool.
But I don't like to tell stories, but when I was a young prosecutor and we arrested a bank robber who, while robbing the bank, was standing in front of the camera without a mask. And when I tried to get a confession from him, he wouldn't confess to the crime, and he wouldn't tell me who he was robbing the bank with. So finally, I said to him, "I'll bet that you didn't plan this bank robbery to put you in front of a camera without a mask." And then we got the confession, and everybody else who was with him.
That was a nice tactic, but very, very, very strong evidence, right? Video footage.
Right, that's the point. Yep.
Yeah, once he has a twin brother, it's him, right? So.
Thank you so much, Chief Gottesman, for that update. Because again, security issues remain something that's top of mind for our concerns. And so we appreciate you giving us that update. I wanted to use this last few minutes to see if there were any more member updates. I think we hit all the updates. Great. And I also wanted to use this time before we close, now that this is our last meeting of 2020, we have circulated the meetings. We will continue to have these CAC meetings every other month, and we're going to continue to have community meetings virtually. We have completed our cycle of getting to every single borough to host a community meeting. We had to do the Bronx community meeting virtually. Although that wasn't ideal, the format actually worked well. So we appreciate everyone who participated in that. And we will continue to have our next virtual community meeting in Staten Island. Our CAC representative, Shakina Butler, will help us host that meeting. And we ask everyone to please join us virtually for that if you'd like to attend, and encourage all of the residents in Staten Island to join us. And we'll continue to go borough by borough because it's so important that we hear from residents and have the opportunity to engage directly. So with that, we will continue in 2021 to go to every borough, either virtually or in person. And we continue to encourage residents to reach out to us to discuss systemic issues that you're facing in your development, particularly as it relates to the pillar issues that we're looking at in the agreement: lead, heat, hot water, mold, elevators, organizational structure, waste and pest, et cetera. So those structural issues, unfortunately, sometimes we do get, individual unit issues or concerns that people might have, like with neighbors, et cetera. Those really aren't within our bandwidth. We continue to encourage you to reach out to NYCHA resources and emergency NYPD resources where things are more egregious and or more urgent. But please continue to send us your systemic concerns. Sometimes we don't respond to everyone individually, but those are the issues that inform our discussions and our work on the monitor team. So we appreciate resident input. We encourage all residents to please participate in this open period on the organizational plan through December 28th. It is on the NYCHA website. We also remind you to please take a look at the Monitor's recent report, which is available on the NYCHA Monitor's website. And we will continue to do those quarterly reports. And we, as a matter of course, we send them out to all stakeholders. Our CCOP representatives all receive them, all the TAPs receive them, elected officials, et cetera. So please continue to check the NYCHA Monitor website and your emails. We will continue to communicate regularly. And we want to take this moment to thank especially our resident CAC members who have been so diligent and working so hard and asking thoughtful questions and mostly rolling up your sleeves to advance important issues and to work closely with all of us and to work with NYCHA. We've had so many issues addressed and we appreciate your leadership. We will in 2021 begin to formally rotate our resident leaders to advisory status on the CAC and be adding new residents. So we encourage everyone on this call, everyone watching on our live YouTube stream or watching a recording, that if you do have an interest in rolling up your sleeve and assisting us on the work of the CAC or assisting the monitor team, we'd love to hear from you and to get you involved either formally or informally. We definitely want to hear from residents who, it's kind of a thankless job. It's an unpaid volunteer position. There's not much clout, but we appreciate your input. So if there are other people in each borough who are equally interested in rolling up your sleeves, I want to thank and name each of our members, some of which could not join due to emergency circumstances tonight. And we will continue to thank them in our next meeting, but particularly on our call with us today, Ms. Ortiz, you've been such a valuable member of our CAC and you've worked so hard, particularly addressing issues related to the recertification process in CBOL, being a partner to share your advice, expertise, frustrations with NYCHA and the CAC. We appreciate you so much. And Mr. Robert Hall, I'd also like to take this moment to thank you. You've also been a tremendous advocate on the part of the residents, and you've added so much value to our discussions that we have every other month on these CAC calls and asking very thoughtful and difficult questions. We appreciate you so much. And I would like to formally acknowledge that we've asked Ms. Butler, who represents Staten Island, who had been our honorary member for Ms. Doreen Williams in her absence and sickness. She stepped in and stepped up, and we've asked her to formally join us on the CAC, and she's graciously accepted. So thank you, Ms. Butler. We look forward to your formal introduction at our next meeting, and we thank you for your continued service and you also being a tremendous host. We look forward to the meeting that you'll host for us next month in Staten Island. Bart, with that, I wanted to turn it over to you to close us out, please.
Yep. Thank you, Asha. Very well said, and I endorse everything that you did say. The only thing I would add is that it's important that any comments or questions that anyone has about the transformation plan, if you're having any trouble with the plan or have questions or don't understand any aspect of it or want to make sure that it gets to the right place, contact us. We'll help you through that process so that NYCHA has it and we have. Obviously, what we get, we'll share with NYCHA just as they're sharing with us. So any help that you need, don't stand on ceremony. Just let us know, and we'll do our best to assist. And just wish everybody stay safe. It looks like there's some light at the end of the tunnel, although a lot of families have suffered and continue to suffer. Please take care, and let's all get through this. So thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our December meeting. We look forward to seeing you all at our next CAC meeting in February, and we thank everyone who joined us on the live stream. Thank you.
Have a happy holiday, everyone, too. Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.